Yes, guys, I'm Si. Welcome to Cardiff City World. Welcome to the breakdown. It's on a Monday night this week because I went out last night. So there we go. Makes a change because I got out early. But yeah, that was cool. Watched Leroy Brito on the last night of his tour in his hometown of Cardiff. It was a beautiful night spent with my wife. Lovely stuff. But that's not what you want to hear about. It's not what you want to talk about. You want to talk about me and my life. You want to talk about the mighty Bluebirds. And things are ticking along nicely on and off the pitch. We got some things, some rumours, some transfers, some stuff. Got any questions, got any stuff? But we're generally going to be looking at what we think Erol Bulut is cooking up this year, whether it's the squad, whether it's the playing style, any adaptations. What do you think? What do you think is different already in pre-season, if anything? Get involved in the comments on Twitter, on YouTube, and we'll have a good old chin wag. But if you haven't already, check out the video we dropped yesterday on the channel, which was basically a little look at Ali Al-Hamidi to see. He's been heavily linked with Cardiff. Talk about some of his attributes, what he's good at, what how he'll fit in, or how he would fit in if Cardiff were to end up signing him. Is he a good option for that centre forward position, etc.? So yeah, it's a good old thing. But check it out. Dropped yesterday. We got another one coming later this week, I think. On who have we got? We got a couple coming. We got one on Sarmiento. We got one on got an interesting video coming on Robertson, who was on loan at Portsmouth last year from Man City. I'm led to believe, someone I spoke to today who kind of would know, that that is quite close to being completed as well. So that's really exciting, because I had another conversation with someone today. I did a video for a Portsmouth fan channel, and he is, when I said to him, like, I think it's pretty much done, he was like, "Oh, you winding me up." Like, he was really, really gutted. Like, he said he's the best, how did he describe him? The best midfielder he's ever seen play for Portsmouth in all his years. And I was like, that's some compliment when you look back over some of the players they've had over the years. Pedro Mendes springs to mind, but they've had all sorts of crazy players, So now I'm not saying he is as good as those players. What I'm saying is they view him very, very highly. So if we're able to pull that off, particularly if we're able to pull off a permanent deal for him, I think is real bit of a coup. Like, I got to be honest, because the easy move for him, in many ways, if he's going to leave Man City and go to a championship club, is go to Portsmouth, where he was last year. He knows the club, he knows the area, he's been there a year. So yeah, I think it'll be a bit of a coup if we can pull that one off. And I expect to see some players out. I think probably hopefully Robertson will come in. Maybe Wintle goes out. I think once we get a striker in, I think someone's going to go out. I don't know if it's going to be Robinson. I don't know if it's going to be someone else. But it's an interesting thing, because it's a question I'll put to you guys, right? Obviously, you have to bear in mind the opposition that we have played so far in pre-season, because the early games you're kind of playing, with no disrespect, kind of weaker opposition. Although Hamburger, decent enough, but in terms of the other teams, they're lower sort of Welsh League teams or whatever. So you have to bear that in mind. But do you see any difference in the way we are trying to play football? That's all. I'll leave it at that without giving any of my opinions at the moment. I just want to know, do you, having watched those games, do you see any difference in how we're trying to play? Just interested, really. Just interested. And also, you guys let me know if we were able to pull off the Robertson signing, if we were able to get Al-Hamidi in. Do you think they're good signings? Do they improve the first team? Do you think they fit in with what we're trying to build? Because initially I assumed Al-Hamidi, if we were to get him, would be a loan deal. But I saw that Ipswich have either been linked or strongly linked with or talking to Smodic, who was obviously the top scorer in the championship. So I wonder how much game time he's going to get, even though he only went there in January. I do wonder how much game time he's going to get, and whether we can pull off a permanent deal for him as well. That would be I can't tell you, I'd be really happy if we got Al-Hamidi and Robertson. I'd be super, super pleased, because one of the things that I like about Al-Hamidi is that he's not just a target man who we're just going to lump it up to and try and play off. Like, he can drop in deep and he can link up the play and he can do that, but he can get in behind. He's a good finisher. He can play wide as well. Like, he's very flexible. And he's a big boy, strong, speedy, and he's young, hungry. I was speaking to someone who is kind of a friend of his the other day, and they said, like, he trains so hard in his spare time on his finishing, and like, he does a lot of extra work. He's very motivated to be the best version, like the best finisher or the best version of himself, and like get better. And I think that type of attitude is the sort of attitude you should want to bring into your football club. Young players who are hungry. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the Sarmiento one, I did a little video on him. I don't think he's coming to Cardiff. I've got to be honest. I think that's a bit of almost like a dream one, because he is way, like, for me, like, he's not a championship player. Like, he's real good. But again, what a coup. Robertson, Al-Hamidi, Sarmiento, all the players that we're being linked to, the quality compared to kind of players we were looking at last year even, it's a bit of a jump up, and that's encouraging for me. And as I said in one of the videos, or a couple of videos I've done recently, what's pleasing me the most is we're acting like a football club at the moment. Like, we look organised, we look proactive, we're working on multiple deals at the same time, which is something which has been quite frustrating previously, where it feels like you've got to do one, then the next one, and they could never, but like, it feels like they're working on, multiple deals, speaking to multiple people. And like Zach has just said, they're aiming high. And look, if we get in a striker who is of the similar talent level to Chris Willock, and the similar ability and quality of Callum Chambers, get a striker and a number 8 of that quality, and they stay fit, and they're able to play the majority of the season, we are cooking, because we've already got the likes of Aaron Ramsey, who, as it stands, is like super fit and ready and had a full preseason. Young talent like Ruben Colwell, Isaac Davis, people like this, Kean Ashford. Like, we are, like, suddenly we look really, really exciting and deep as well. So I saw someone, I don't know where it's gone. Ben asked about, said McAteer ? So I noticed the other day, Paul Abandonato did, like, Bullock could name these 2 squads, and in his 2 squads, he included Casey McAteer. So I can kind of say this now. I couldn't say this about a week ago. I was told probably the start of last week, maybe even the week before, that Casey McAteer was basically done, and he just had to do a medical, and there was a few little bits and pieces to sort out with the club regarding a fee. And then, like, 48 hours later, after I was told that, it went, he was pictured in training, and he's obviously got on pre-season tour with Leicester. Doesn't necessarily mean anything. However, I was speaking to someone this morning. He's not necessarily like in the know, but kind of, knows, gets some bits and pieces, knows some people, whatever. And he was saying, like, we're quite confident that we can get that deal done. So they're focused elsewhere, but they wouldn't be surprised if we go back to it, because it's kind of agreed and he wants to come here. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. It's obviously, second, third-hand information. But I was told that, like, and I've, people like Sloper, I speak to Sloper Road Blues about it, and he'll, say, I said like a week ago that it was pretty much done. So I'm almost surprised that he's not been announced with how confident the guy was who told me. But then that makes me think, after speaking to these guys today, and they were saying, like, it's pretty much sort of agreed, but they might go back to it, sort of thing, and they're working on other things with a bit more urgency. And you could see that, like, we need a striker and we need an 8 in, like, now, as soon as possible. So I do get prioritizing those if that is the case. Leicester obviously are trying to get a replacement in, and I don't think there's an agreement on the fee as well. And this is mad, right? If you told me at the start of the summer that we were going to get, let's say, that Robertson on loan for the season, I'd have been very happy. If you told me we were going to get Casey McAteer on loan for the season, I'd have been ecstatic. Even Callum Chambers for a loan for a season to tide us over, I'd have been really happy. So to get these guys in, potentially, in those cases, because obviously they're not in the door officially, to get these kind of players in on a permanent deal, like the age of them and the quality of them is super exciting. I got to say, really, really excited by it. But let's go to some of the comments, see what the folks are saying. Reese says, how you feeling now, mate? I know you said you were exhausted and anxious over Friday. Feeling more confident? Yeah, mate, I'm fine now. I was just knackered. Looking forward to it. Obviously, it's been a bit of a rush around getting everything together in 2 weeks, but it's all good, mate. It's all good. Very excited for it. Sorting out some additional cameras and stuff like that. It's going to be good. Really can't wait, I've got to say. Zach says, love Robertson. Would love Robertson coming in. Reese says, we're linked with Sarmiento. I think if we did get that over the line, I'd be absolutely delighted. Not sold on Al-Hamidi, though. Interesting. Al-Hamidi, I think, would be a great signing. I do. He's way better than any striker we have at the moment. Zach says, do you think Robertson will have a part to play? He looks good in pre-season. Yeah, so Robertson's a weird one, right? Because I was really disappointed by what I saw from him last year, both on the pitch, around the games, like his attitude and his body language, things I heard. He obviously fell out with a manager. You know, we all know that a couple of times. I was really disappointed by it because at the start of the season, if you go back to my preview of the season, I said he should be our number 9. He's the best finisher at the club. He should be our number 9 going into the season. And he never really played there. He clearly got frustrated with not being a starter or whatever it is, you know, not playing regular. He fell out with a manager. Maybe there was a bit of clash of personalities or whatever. However, I assumed at the end of the season, I just assumed he was going because once Bulut had that new contract, kind of made sense that some of the guys who he'd clashed with or had been rumoured to have like a bit of a bad attitude and damaging to the group, whether it's Romeo or Wintle and Robinson or whoever, people who are not in the manager's plans. I assume we just kind of shake hands with them, say thanks for your time and move them on because you want everyone behind the manager. Now, everybody who I've spoken to, and I've spoken to a few people now about it, they all saying the same thing. He's come back. He's in great shape. His attitude, his mentality, everything is like 100% like spot on. Like he's got a point to prove. He's doing all the right things. And I think you're seeing that on the pitch as well, mind, because I think he's doing well on the pitch. I think he's played well. Everything I've seen of him, he's looked good. It's never been an ability thing, or certainly in my opinion, and it's only my opinion ultimately, but like, in my opinion, it's never been about ability or quality with him. Like he absolutely has it. Don't know why my camera just went off, but that's frustrating. I'll keep talking. So I absolutely believe that, he has all the quality and ability to do the right things, to be a starter for Cardiff, as a number 9. 100% I believe that. But my worry with him is if we bring in an Al-Hamidi or whoever, we bring in a striker, and if Robinson's on the bench, because we've got Willock and Ramsey and Colwell and Ashford, and so we've got a deep squad. If we added Casey McAteer as well and Turnbull, and it's a deep squad. Isaac Davis as well. So like it's a deep squad in those areas. If he's on the bench for the 5-6 games, is that frustration going to rear his head again? And then it becomes, does that then become a problem? I don't know, because but like you can't fault him. Like he's come back after the summer and everything is spot on. So like that's all you would ask, is to come back and prove a point. Because I think a lot of people, including me, have doubted him and doubted whether he had the right attitude and the right mentality and stuff like that. I would love him to prove me wrong and love him to be like one of our number 9 options who go score 15 goals or whatever this year and show what he can do, because I absolutely think that he has the quality, but I just don't know if he, what we need in order to be successful as a team and a club is everyone's pulling in the same direction and everyone's behind the manager, even in those who are, and it's particularly in the case of the players who are not necessarily starting week in, week out. So I've just noticed this comment, so I'm going to fly to this. Steve Davis Evans, I'm assuming that is. Shout out, Steve. Does some great work. He says, I know we've been linked with Stansfield, but the lack of striker signing is worrying. It's early days, mate, I think, in terms of being concerned about it. I think they are definitely working on at least one, if not two. The thing with Stansfield is interesting. Do you know why it's interesting? I just read a report about half an hour ago that Birmingham, about a £5 million bid accepted for Jay Stansfield. One, absolutely mental that a League One club who's just been relegated is spending that much money. Two, I think he'd be a great signing to get him back up. But if they're going to, no matter how much money they got, I know the FFP and everything is a bit looser, like lower down. But like, if they're going to spend $5 million on one player, they're going to need to bring some money in. So I roll way back to what I was talking about at the end of the season. Why aren't we offering Birmingham City, Ryan Wintle and Romeo, or Ryan Wintle and Callum Robertson, plus a little bit of cash for Jordan James? Because Jordan James is the perfect profile of player and attributes and quality that we need in the midfield areas. He's young, he's Welsh, he's good on the ball, he's aggressive, he's good at defensive work, he's good a bit further forward, and he's got all the attributes. But anyway, yes, that's my thing on Jay Stansfield. I know we were linked with him on loan. I like him. I do. I think he's good. Stansfield. I really like him. I think he's got quality. He works hard, bit of pace. But as it stands, I haven't heard anything like concrete about us getting him in. The Robertson one is really, really fascinating to me. Really fascinating. Ben says McAteer, Robinson, and an out-and-out goal scorer will get playoffs, in my opinion. Yeah, interesting. Robinson. Yeah, no, mate, I gotta be honest. Like, if we bring in that Robertson and McAteer plus a striker, I'm hoping we bring in a striker of the same kind of profile as Al Hamidi. I'm not saying we have to get him, but just not someone who's just not a target man. I would like someone who's able to be that kind of target, but can also work in behind, work in the channels, work in the half spaces. Like, that is something which excites me. So I asked the question at the start of the show, have you guys seen anything different in the preseason games, if you take out the opponents, but just generally, and how we're trying to play? So the reason I asked that is because, in my opinion, I think we're trying to move the ball a lot quicker, particularly in the attacking areas. Once we get into that sort of final third, I think we're trying to move it much, much quicker. But also, the thing which is I've noticed heavily, and it's something I talked about a bit last season. At the start of last season, we played out from the back, as we did all season. But what we did at the start of the season, the passing had purpose because we had a lot of movement off the ball. So when we were passing through the lines into the midfield, we had loads of people moving and options for people to pass to. And then as the season went on, Ramsey got injured, confidence dropped, McGuinness was out, which is a big problem. We went to that horrible, like, flat three defensive midfielders, and it all became a bit dull and a bit drab. So I think moving the ball a bit quicker is really encouraging, but the movement that I'm seeing off the ball, a bit more freedom to drift out of position when we're in possession of the football. And this is something that me and Paul Abandonado talked about with Colwell, because we were kind of, the question was, I think someone asked it, was if Ramsey's fit and firing and he's in that number 10, do you drop Ruben Colwell? And we kind of said, well, if Ruben Colwell's in the form that he was in last year, no. But could you put him as a kind of Phil Foden role, for lack of a better term, where he out of possession, he's wide, but when you're in possession, he can kind of drift. And I think, I can't remember if it was me or Paul, kind of questioned, would Erol Bulut give any player that freedom to just drift or does he like his structure and stuff like that? And I think he does like his structure, and he likes that defensive solidity. So as soon as you lose the ball, you've got like 8 men behind the ball, and you're difficult to break down. But you can still have that. But when you're in possession, you can allow your attacking 3 or 4 to drift, and you can allow your number 8 to go a bit box to box. So I'm excited. Like I've said a few times recently, and I said it on this Portsmouth fan channel video, which I'd done earlier. I haven't been this excited about a season for a very long time. And it's difficult to say now because we've only got 2 signings in at the moment, right? But if we bring in the 3 players of the quality that we're being linked with, we got a deep squad and a young squad with some real experience in there, with your Gutases and your Siopases. Got 2 experienced keepers at the moment. You've got Perry NG and Jamal Collins, both pretty experienced footballers. You've got Joe Rawls within the group. You've got Aaron Ramsey within the group. And then around them, you've got legs and flair and creativity. How can you not be excited by that? Because I think Bulut built a good foundation last year. Not perfect by any means, and he's definitely not, above criticism. I said that many times as well. You have to be able to criticize when he gets things wrong. And I'm sure he'll get things wrong this year. But I'm excited by what he's building this summer. And look, I'm the first to criticize the board, the transfer committee, the club off the field for some of the stuff they do or some of the stuff they haven't done. You've got to give them credit at the moment. Like, they're moving like a proper football club, and they're doing, working on multiple deals, backing the manager with quality footballers. That to me is what I was looking for. So look at some more of these comments. Reese says, really shocked to see Ryan Wintle left behind, but Rinamoto taken to Austria. I genuinely couldn't tell you his best position. Is he box to box, or is he a ball winner? I couldn't tell you. I really don't know what he offers. So my theory on Rinamoto is that he's essentially gone as the kind of Romeo replacement, bit of a utility player, the Phil Neville, if you like, or the John O'Shea or whatever, who, he can play right back, he can play in the middle of midfield, he can play wide, play a variety of positions. He's got a good attitude. He never moans, never complains, never sulks. So you can kind of take him and he can just be a squad player. And also, if you want to move him on, you can get him fit and get him in the window. I'll be honest with you. I think the thing which signed Ryan Wintle leaving was the Rotherham game at the end of the season. His attitude he was laughing like as we were getting dicked by a team which has got relegated. So for me, that was probably the moment where I feel like maybe sealed his fate. But even without that, I've been saying since probably like February time, he was always the odd one out in the midfield because you had Siopis is the manager's man. You got Rawls as the club captain and just signed a new contract. Even if he's not going to start, he's the club captain and he signed a new contract. Then you've got Turnbull came in January, and I've forgotten the other one, but basically Wintle, it works out like Wintle was the most likely to be moved on. You can get a bit of cash for Wintle as well, I think. So 5 million for Jace. 5 million from a League One club is mad, man. I'm telling you, it's crazy money. Football's mad. Borough fan says everyone making a few moves in the transfer market. Yes, fascinating. David Richard said, I'd happily sell a Tete. I believe, and I know there's a few of the regular guys don't agree with me on this, but I will say it again. I believe that we should loan a Tete this year to a League One side where he can play every week, because I believe there's ability there. He's shown glimpses, but I think he needs to toughen up mentally and physically. And I believe that if he goes and plays 30, 40 games at League One level, gets battered about by some experienced veteran defenders, but scores goals and uses his ability, because I do think there's ability there. You don't come through Spurs' academy if you're a complete donkey. So I would give him this year to show that he's capable and he can toughen up physically, mentally, and do it. What I wouldn't do is I wouldn't have him part of the first team squad this year for us. Even if like, what? Even if we only signed one striker, I still wouldn't have Atete wouldn't be in my squad, because if we sign one striker, you've got that striker, you've got Isaac Davis, and then you've got a couple who can do a job there behind him, like an Ashford or a whoever, like Mate. Like, I would take them over playing Atete. I don't think he offers enough. I think he might offer a bit more if you had played two strikers and it was like him and Ashford, say. But for me, it's almost like a passenger, mate. Someone asked me yesterday, would I sell Mate? And I said, I don't know if I'm quite there in terms of like selling him. Like, I think, because I do think there's more to come from him. Like, I think we saw anywhere near the level of what he's capable of last year. But I was very disappointed by what I saw last year. He did a job up front and his hold up play, and that's pretty good. But I thought he was quite poor. His finishing was poor. I thought he was relatively poor when he played out wide as well. Whereas when he came in, I was real excited. Like, he always seemed to score against us, and I liked it. So that was encouraging for me. But so I was a little bit disappointed by what I saw from him. And so I'm not saying sell him, but like, if we got, if someone offered decent money for him, I wouldn't be against selling him either. But I suppose you can't sell Atete, or you can't get rid of Atete, Mate, and Robinson, say. Like, that leaves you very, very thin on the ground. But it depends how effectively we can work in a transfer market, because I think people do forget how difficult transfers are. Like, get them over the line, the contracts, everything. Like, so to get like 5 permanent transfers in and 3, 4, 5 out, it's quite tricky. Like, so, I think we all forget that as fans sometimes. Reece says Robinson seems to be playing with a smile on his face. I know it's friendly, but he seems to be really enjoying it at the moment. Yeah, I agree with that, mate. He looks a different player, mate. He just looks happier, and everything I've heard, mate. Honestly, I can't say enough how much his attitude, body language, mentality, work rate has caught the eye. Like, really, really, like. And I saw, like, I've seen some people saying, X player's been amazing in preseason, X player's been sloppy, shocking, whatever. Like, I pay zero attention to preseason and results and like performances, because the thing is with preseason is what, like, you don't realize, or what some people don't realize, I guess, is that sometimes you can, like, it might be like, say, let's just say hypothetically the Hamburg game, it might be right. The manager and the coach says, what we want to work on today is passing out from the back. So no matter what, at every opportunity, even if it's not on, even if there's pressure, we're going to play out from the back, and we're going to focus on that for the first half or the first hour or the whole game. And it might be anything. Well, today we're going to work on patterns of play and getting in behind on the right-hand side. All these different things that you use pre-season to work on, and fitness. So I don't think the performances individually can be properly judged. However, of course, you want to see players as they get fitter, being, improving and getting ready for the season. You want to hit the ground running. But, I've seen us be awful in pre-season, and then the first couple of games of the season, we've been excellent. It means nothing, but it is what it is. Let's have a look. Paul says, Atete needs a loan away for a season, doing the world of good. Reece says, one issue I think we still have, our fullbacks are our width. Apart from Tanner, our wide players are all very narrow. Mate isn't a winger, and he wouldn't be my first choice for a second choice for striker either. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what Mate is like in terms of his position. And I'm not sure if he's like, we just got better options. But I guess we'll see. I thought Jamalu Collins has looked good, but again, it's pre-season. It just doesn't matter. I think he's starting to get forward. You saw it towards the end of last season. He was starting to get forward more and more once he came back from his little spell out of this team. Again, like Reece says, Ruben looked poor against Hamburg. Sloppy touches, passing was poor, and missed a glorious chance. Yeah, like, it's not. I'm not saying it's good. It's not great, is it? But it just doesn't matter. I don't think it's just fitness and just working on certain things for the team. Sloper Road Blues, evening mate. He says Birmingham spending upwards of 10 million by the looks of it is absolutely crazy. Yeah, as I said earlier, mate, it's fucking mental. This is an interesting one, and I'm not sure where I stand on it. So let's discuss it. Michael Belcher says, Joel Bagan, player to watch this season. Where do people stand on that? Because I know a lot of people, when we were talking about it earlier in the summer, and like when Joel came up, people were like, no, sell him. He's not up to it. It's an interesting one because when he came into the side, very, very first time he broke into the side, I thought he looked like, everyone was like, wow, he looks a player. Heard he did all right on loan as well. So, look, we need a left back. So, he's got an opportunity if he can really push on. I still would like to have seen Cody Dramer come in and maybe hopefully still. But imagine, like, if our fullback options, you know, I like Conte, mate, me. And that's my problem is if we were to get Dramer, I think Joel Bagan would be the one to go because I want Conte to be the backup to the right back because I'm so impressed with Conte at the moment. I'm so impressed. But yeah, I hope so because I think Joel Bagan, I do think there's a player there. And I think if we can get the absolute tip-top best out of him and he's got the right attitude and the way he goes about it, I do think there's a player there. What do you guys think? Let me know. Renario Garcia says, Isaac Davis needs a new contract. His pace is what we were missing last season. His pace against Hamburg caused no end of problems and we pressed better. I definitely agree we pressed better with Davis. And actually going on to the next comment, Steve says, I'd give the right wing role to Davis and Tanner to fight it out for both. Both are good enough now to rely on. Willock and Robertson off the left, Ramsey and Ruben as the 10. And then it's just that striker. So let me see where I stand with that. Not sure Tanner's got the consistency at the moment, but I believe you can get consistency by playing as well. And if he's one of two options for a certain position, he's more likely to play. Whereas I think last season he was almost like third choice, fourth choice. So he didn't get a lot of game time. Definitely ability there, though, and I like, you know, what he's capable. He's got that bit of sprinkle, bit of magic. Isaac Davis, I still think Isaac could be one of our two options for number 9 with the odd game out wide. I quite like him through the middle, and agreeing with what Renario said. Well, when Isaac has been on the pitch in pre-season, our pressing definitely looks better and more coordinated because the players seem to know, like when he goes, they go with him. I really like him. I would prefer to see Callum Robertson. If Callum Robertson's staying with us, I'd prefer him through the middle, I think, as a striker. Then I know he's done actually. When you look at his stats, I believe off memory, when we looked, I'm sure his best stats were actually off the left, but they're pretty good as a number 9 as well. But yeah, Steve says Bagan will be back up to Collins. Reece says, I don't rate him as a left back. Thought he was very weak, very poor. I'd be happy to sell or let him go for free. But we're not actively seeking a left back. Him and Tom Davis are cover for Collins. I really like Louis Giles, but I think Louis Giles will go out on loan just because there's probably one or two in front of him in the pecking order. But ultimately, if you're good enough, you'll play. Well, that's interesting. But Reece says he does think he did a good job at centre-back on Bagan. Paul says, I'd say Bagan will be the last day of the transfer window on loan with the majority of the young ones, bar those who were here last season at the end of the season. Interesting, isn't it? What was I going to ask you? So I was going to ask you, who would you be disappointed? So out of the first team kind of squad, who would you be genuinely disappointed if they ended up moving on in this summer? Not eventually, just this summer. Who would you be disappointed to see going? Whether it's an Isaac Davis, it's a Colwell, a McGuinness, NG. Like, who would you be gutted to see go? I think we've all kind of come to terms with the fact that Perry NG was going to go this summer. And at the moment, it seems like he might be staying, which I'm very happy with. Although it's weird because I love Perry NG. But if you gave me a choice of keeping either him or McGuinness, I'd probably want to keep McGuinness because I think there's a few good right backs available that you could get in. And I really like Conte. So, but McGuinness, I think, is quite instrumental to how we play. And obviously, we signed Callum Chambers, who can play right back as well. So, it's an interesting one, definitely for me. Reece says Psyopis for me. I think I trust Bulut to replace anyone else who goes. Yeah, I think that's Gutas and Psyopis are probably safe though, Ned, let's be honest. Paul says, I think 6 may go out on loan. Rinamoto, Wintle, Romeo will be gone. Possibly McGuinness will be sold if that club comes back in with a better cash deal. Apparently McGuinness, there was a couple of clubs hovering about him. Dan says, I'd keep Davis and NG over McGuinness and Colwell. Wow, that's controversial, mate. I gotta say, what do people think about that? Then that's really interesting to me. I think we should keep Isaac Davis. I was a little bit on the fence, but I think what he did on loan, I think he's just going to come back mentally more mature, being away like on his own for a year, and I think he looks a bit physically stronger. I'd absolutely be gutted if we sold Ruben Colwell this year. I think we should get at least one more year out of him because I think with these players around him now, I think we'll see the absolute best out of him. I thought he suffered a little bit by the lack of movement and people around him not doing what you'd expect them to do. I'd rather keep all 4, mate, to be honest. Because they're all pretty young. Like I know Perry's like sort of late 20s or whatever, or mid to late 20s. I feel like if we could keep McGuinness for at least one more season and we can keep NG and we can keep Ruben, keep Davis as an option. Like we're building a squad. It's a squad game. And we are getting to a point where if some of these players come in and we move a couple out, we could have 2 quality options in every position. I mean, when was the last time we were able to say that? Like, is it just me? Have I just taught myself into it because I spend so much time looking at it and researching these players that we're linked with and blah, blah, blah. Am I just too ingrained in it now that like I'm excited and optimistic, which is an unusual feeling for me as a Cardiff fan anyway. But like, have I just talked myself into being optimistic and excited and like we're rolling a certain way in the transfer market? Or are other people excited and optimistic? Like, tell me, am I delusional? Help me. Jaden says, I'd be gutted if Robinson went. I got a feeling he's going to bang in the goals this season. That's an interesting one, mate. So my thing with Robinson is if he can maintain this attitude and mentality and everything that he's had in this pre-season, I'd definitely keep him because I think he's 100% got the ability to be a number 9 or a left-sided forward. My only worry with him playing on the left, I can't remember who said, I think it might have been Steve said, have him as an option for the left, is I want to see out-and-out wingers like a Willock, and I want to see wingers to give us some width because at the moment, like I like NG and I like Jamal Collins as well, but certainly on their most recent sort of seasons, they're not exactly bombing up. So when you've got like if wingers who cut in or line up quite narrow, that kind of only works well if you've got fullbacks who get in beyond and get that width for you. And whilst Jamal Collins pre-knee injury was bombarding up that left-hand side, he hasn't quite got to that level of attacking thought since. He's starting to get there, though, I think. The Perry's like gets up there, but doesn't necessarily overlap a lot. So I would like to see some out-and-out wingers. I was like mentioned it before, but I don't think we haven't been linked with him whatsoever. There's a couple of wingers up at Peterborough, which I quite like, in Poku and Jade Jones, but you know, they won't come anyway. Let's have a look what we got. Dan says, would you pay 5 million for Jay Stansfield or take a punt on a Turkish striker for 2 million? I think 5 million for Jay Stansfield is quite a lot. Like and people who've watched for a while will know I really rate Jay Stansfield. There's a lot to like about him as a footballer. I like his attitude. I like his personality and his mentality. I like pretty much everything. Like, I think he's going to be a real good player. And I actually think eventually he will be a Premier League striker. But 5 million for a striker who's not prolific is mental, particularly from a League One club. If I was going to spend 5 million on a striker, I think I'd rather Al Hamidi. I wouldn't spend 5 million on him, I don't think, but I like him. I would rather Al Hamidi than Stansfield. And I've seen quite a lot of both, but that's more because I think Al Hamidi will work well with the players that we've got. And I think Jay Stansfield maybe as an all-round footballer, not like an all-round striker with everything that he offers and like linker play, running in behind, running the channels. Like, I think Al Hamidi's got a little bit more of an all-round thing going on. One thing which Jay Stansfield has got at the moment over Al Hamidi is his finishing is real good, and he loves to run the channels and stuff like that. I do like him. I just think 5 million is a bit rough. Like, and in answer to your question, it's not my money, so I'd be delighted to see Jay Stansfield up here. Delighted. I think he's a player, but so it's not my money. But I still think 5 million is a lot for him. Reese says Bulut wanted more say on transfers. I've got a feeling he's telling the club no to some of these players that the club are putting forward. Yeah, well, at the end of the day, it needs to be a group effort. Cardiff, at the moment, are kind of rolling the way I would like to see them roll. They didn't just snap the hands off for the first bid that came in from McGuinness. Because you've got to remember that 5 million that got bid for McGuinness, it sounds like, 5 million, man. Great. But we got to give 20% or 25% to Arsenal. So then it becomes less. And his age means, and his contract status and stuff, like that means that 5 million doesn't get you that. Not for a player of that standard. No way. But he'll obviously have his price, as has everyone. Paul says Colwell Senior has to be on it. Joel Colwell could be a loan option for the season. Joel, I think this season is probably one season too early for him to push for the first team. Not through ability, just the people around in the midfield area. There's going to be a lot of competition, and his age now, he needs to play. So I think a loan, and again, I'd like to see the club being quite proactive when they're loaning these young players out, particularly the likes of Joel Colwell, Louis Giles, who were not too far off, like pushing for first team squad places. Let's make sure they go to clubs where they're going to play. Because I think, Atete, Joel Colwell, Louis Giles, if they can go somewhere next season and play 30, 40 games like Isaac Davis did last year, they will get so much out of it, but they will also grow as players, as people. 100%. Let's have a look what else we got. This is an interesting one because I talked about this the other week. Steve says, I wouldn't mind us getting Tyrese Campbell on a free or Jefferson on loan from Bournemouth to play up front. Tyrese Campbell's an interesting one. He's a free, isn't he? So I think I got a video coming out on him. I've recorded a few, so I forget which ones I did or which ones I've got in mind. I think I did one on him and how he might fit in. I'd be disappointed if he was our main striker option. But wouldn't be disappointed if we got someone else in and then signed him on a free and moved Atete and Mate and a few out to make room. Like Tyrese Campbell as an option, yes, 100%. Tyrese Campbell as the kind of only option or the main option, I'm a little bit. Jefferson I quite like though. Reece says, been saying for a while, Aaron Conley, ex-Brighton, whole winger, plays across the front four, pacey, direct runs at defenders. Yeah. It's a good shout, mate. It's a good shout. I'm interested in what Bulut's cooking, I got to say. And he's on a free as well, Aaron Conley. I really feel like I'll ask again, is it just me? Or is everyone else a bit optimistic, quietly optimistic? Because you don't want to be too excited and I'm going to win the league, going to win it all. But are you positive at least on how we've started the summer and what we feel like Bulut's building, because I do think there was players within our team last year who had good seasons. So it's kind of adding to those. Got Isaac Davis back, people like that, and building. They're going to have to get rid of players. They got to make room. They can't sign these players and not sell players. Like, there's just no way. So we'll see how it goes, as they say. Let's have a look. Who would you move out if it was your choice? Who would you sell? No, so don't worry so much about loans, but who would you sell from the squad now to make room for these new signings? Like, who you will? Not saying you think they're rubbish or anything like that, but who would you like to move out? Steve says, so far so good. We just need to get a goal scorer in. Yeah, 100%. We absolutely. I still would argue, depending on what the decision is on Isaac Davis, that we need 2 strikers. If we're going to keep Isaac Davis, then I believe you can get away with 1 striker, because you've got a couple in there who can play as a third choice striker. But it's definitely going to be interesting. I expect that we'll hear a couple of signings very soon. Not sure if they'll get completed this week, but I am expecting some signings. Like 2, I think, will be done pretty soon. So I guess it's just waiting for. The problem is we've got to get everything signed. All the transfers have to be signed off by the Welsh FA. So like, it kind of leaks, and we find out that we've got the bloody we got a sign in or whatever. Everyone kind of knows, and they're waiting for the official announcement, and then it takes like 48 hours for the Welsh FA to ratify it. It's so frustrating. But Casey McAteer is one I'm super excited. Like, if we end up getting that through, I'd be super, super excited. Paul says, optimistic we are at the moment. Top 10 on paper, with 2 good strikers away from being top 6. Steve says he would let McGuinness, Romeo, Wintle, and Mate go. I can't believe how many people. I'm surprised, so I say, how many people are willing to let or happy to let McGuinness go, because I thought he was a big part of why we went off the boil when he got injured. Like, he out of the defenders, he's the one defender who will kind of play through the lines and get us out of trouble. But look, that's not to say Callum Chambers can't do that, or his replacement. And by the way, I mentioned this the other day, right at the end of the show. A few people who I know reckon that this Tsunda is absolutely wicked, like real good, which would explain why they're at least willing to listen to offers for McGuinness. And I'll say again, for the sake of repeating myself, I was so happy to see that we turned down 5 million for him, because that is different from previous years. Could you imagine Cardiff turning down £5 million? So like that, I was chuffed with that. Like, even if he goes, and I will be disappointed if we sell McGuinness, because I think he's young and he's a big part of it. I would like to get 1 more season with him, but I understand it. Everyone's got a price, and can a club of our financial position probably can't afford to turn around 6.5, 7 million if it gets that high. So it's kind of like that, isn't it? I'd be gutted if we sold McGuinness and then sold NG as well, though, I'd got to say. Like, 1. Steve clarifies, he said, I wouldn't say I'd be happy for McGuinness to go, but 5-6 million plus 700 grand for Adams, and Bulut can work wonders. Yeah, no, and I agree. And like I said, a club in our position financially, you just can't afford to turn down like 6 million or whatever, whatever it gets to. If we could push the McGuinness fee up to like 7 million or 6.5 with add-ons, at least like that takes the pressure off, just because of his age, really, more than anything. I also think like he's nowhere near his prime. So as good as he is, and as good on the ball, and I think one of the things for me is he's not just he's good on the ball, like defensively, I think he's pretty good as well. Like his positioning's good. Not the he's not the quickest, but he's not the slowest, and I'd expect him to get better. Right, let's have a look at who people would sell. Romeo, Turnbull, interesting. He's only been here a minute. Better man settle. Probably haven't even found a house yet. Romeo, Turnbull, Mate, Atete. Rinamoto and Bagan, says Reese. I agree with all of them, probably except Turnbull. I think Turnbull's a bit of a mad one. Got to give the man time. Dan says I would sell Rinamoto, Atete, Romeo, maybe Mate too. Yeah, so I was wondering if I was the only one with Mate. I just don't see it at all. Like, so it's a weird one. Steve says Rinamoto as well. Paul says McGuinness is one that's worth a bit of cash. I have a feeling that Southampton might come in for Ruben. Yeah, this was a while ago, like probably 3 weeks ago. I heard that Ipswich and Southampton were both going to make a big bid for Ruben. And look, everyone's got their price. And I think if we were to get in like Casey McAteer, and then we get a big bid for Ruben, I could see the football club taking it, simply because as we stand now today, I think it's a big risk to sell Ruben Colwell, because Ramsey's not going to play 40, 50 games in the season. Even if he stays injury-free all season, he's not going to play 50 games. He's just not. And then it's like, Turnbull is still settling. Is he a 10? Is he an 8? Don't know. Like, it's a big risk then to sell Ruben. But then if you get big money, you can bring in someone. Casey McAteer can play wide, can play in a 10. I mean, Willock can play as a 10. I don't want to see Robinson in the 10 again. Robinson has got to be left or centre forward. I can't see him in the 10. I don't like that. Steve clarified about McGuinness. That's an interesting one. Lewis says, do you think Aaron Ramsey will retire after this year? Not necessarily. I could see him retiring if he has like another injury hit season where he like plays sort of 10 games or something, maybe. But it's a very personal decision. I know, like, he was so chuffed to come back to Cardiff for the end of his career, and I know he had probably, and still does, like, big ambitions to do things with the club and get us up and take us places. So I don't think it's nailed on that he would retire after this year, but obviously age catches up with all of us, and all athletes, and this isn't even directed at like Ramsey, this is just at everybody. Age catches you all, and ultimately as well, it's like you can't control it. Like, you can keep fit and you can have a good preseason, you can do all of the right things, eat the right things, keep your body in shape. Sometimes your body just isn't up to it. And I'm not saying that about him, but just saying that, like, generally speaking, it can be out of your hands. Reese says, I think the club are actively seeking a proper number 8. That would mean Turnbull and Rawls both on the bench. Rawls is an impact sub, and I think Bulut likes him more. Yeah, I still would debate whether Turnbull was a Bulut signing or whether the board brought him in sort of like a board signing. I think Joe Rawls will have a big role to play for City this year, because it looks like we're going to have a pretty young squad. So like Gutas, Chambers, Rawls, Ramsey can have a big role to play down the spine of that side. And Rawls will come in for certain games and come on in certain games when we need to keep the ball. He's still got a lot to offer, Joe Rawls, but I would be more, I'd be concerned if he was our main number 8 option. Steve says, for me, it's a huge season for Ruben. He really needs to improve and kick on. Need to see a lot more from him. So I agree with you, the first part. Like, I think it's a huge season for him. I think he needs to kick on. Absolutely. But I thought he was one of the more positive aspects of last season, certainly in the attacking sense. Like, I thought he was probably the pick of the attacking players. And as I said a bit earlier on, I thought he was kind of let down with what was going on around him in some cases. But it'll be interesting, because there'll be no excuses this year with the quality that's going to be around him. There's no excuses. His decision-making's got to be a bit better. Definitely got the quality. It's just whether he can do it. And like I said just a few minutes ago, I'm not convinced that he'll 100% be with us at the start of the season. Ipswich, Southampton, both like him. Well, what do you think is a fair price for Ruben Colwell? Attacking players always go for a bit more. So this will be the last kind of discussion point question now to wrap us up. If you're the Cardiff manager, board, whatever, like what's the lowest amount you are taking for Ruben Caldwell? I'm kind of interested in that. Reese says, just while I let people answer that. Paul says we'd miss McGuinness, but I don't think we'd miss Ruben because I don't think we've seen the best of him. Reese says, I'm a bit worried. So I've seen Bulut has been playing Ramsey deeper in the 8 role. We know he can't do that. But if that's the case, where does that leave Turnbull? Well, he might be looking to play Ramsey as an 8 to play Turnbull in the 10 and then Ruben off the right. For me, I think that's a mistake. I think that's the wrong way round. If you're going to play, like, assuming a lot, but if you're going to try and fit the 3 of them in the side, I would personally play Turnbull in the 8, Ramsey in the 10, and then Ruben off the right. But for me, Turnbull's got a lot to prove. He's got a long way to go to get up to the standard that he is capable of. So this is interesting. I asked the question, how much is the lowest you would take if you were Cardiff City for Ruben? Steve says 10 to 12 million. Paul says 12 million. Lewis says minimum 10 million. Dan, going all the way down, was to take 8 million, and I'd take that for Ruben. That's insane to me, mate. I've got to say. Like, I'm not saying that he's like necessarily a superstar, right? He's still clearly got work and growth to do in terms of his game. But like, attacking players go for more. I think realistically, Cardiff as a club and the financial situation that we're in, I think 10 million and up we'd probably take. And I wonder whether they would accept 8 million plus add-ons, which kind of total up to 10. But Reese says, so we'll finish on this. Reese says, as you know, so I've never been sold on Ruben. There's been glimpses, but he's never been consistent enough. If we got 4 million offer, I'd probably seriously consider it. That is fucking mental, mate. Absolutely mental to me. But there we go. It's all about opinions. I thought he showed more than enough last year, just in himself, that he can do it. You got to remember, he was a number 10 playing without wingers and without a striker. Like, the wingers just wanted to stand next to him, and the striker was not a striker. So it was like, what's he supposed to do? And then for a lot of the time, he had players behind him who couldn't pass to him when he took up intelligent positions. So he had to drop deeper and deeper and deeper to get the ball until eventually he was having to get off bloody Gutas and Phillips because we didn't have a midfield to pass it to him. But he's got his age alone, Steve says, makes him a £6 to £7 million player. Yeah, I just think like there's a reason why people like Russell Martin and so on rate him so highly. I like that he's not your stereotypical number 10 as well. He's a big boy. Alex says 4 million, you're having a laugh. Yeah. I was being polite to Reese, but yeah, Reese, of all your takes, mate, you're normally pretty good. Like, you're pretty knowledgeable, pretty good. Like, I agree with a lot of stuff you say, but 4 million for Ruben Caldwell is freaking insane. We just turned down 5 for Mark McGuinness, and he's a defender. And like, it's just blown my mind, mate. Blown my mind. He's and this is a great point from Dan. He's still developing in the championship. He isn't even a fully fledged international yet. We won't get anything over 10. No, I agree. But to be honest with you, I said this at the end of the season. I think I've changed my opinion slightly because of the quality of the player that we've been linked with and looking at. But I wouldn't. I don't think he's anywhere near the finished article. What I think is that we shouldn't be too quick to sell off someone who in 18 months could be worth more than that. Like, he might not, but if he turns his raw ability and the glimpses we've seen into consistent performances and assists and goals, like, he's going to be worth way more than that. So, like, unless we get a big money offer, I wouldn't take it because I think he's better off with us, personally. But, you know, might not even be, you know, if the club accepts the bid, it's up to him then, isn't it? Reese is getting some grief in the chat for his 4 million chat. Reece says he's achieved nothing yet. 4 or 5 managers have never trusted him. Never plays 90 minutes. Poor stats. Not done enough to earn a £10 million offer. Stats don't mean everything. And mate, remember as well, at the start of last season, I was debating whether he should go on loan. I will be very interested. We'll revisit this. If he's still a Cardiff player at the start of the season, we will revisit this conversation in January. Hopefully I'm right and you're wrong, but we'll see. I think you need him in the squad at the moment because you need someone you can rely on to play, because Ramsey is not going to play every game and he certainly can't play 90 minutes every game. So you need someone who can interchange with him and do it. And I believe, just for instance, very quickly, right? Ruben Colwell last year would have had probably 5, 6, 7 extra assists on what the couple he got if we had had a striker who could put the ball in the net. How many one-on-ones did we miss? And how many of those chances came from Ruben Colwell? And he's always involved in the link-up play, which creates chances. And in the second half of last season, every time he wasn't on the pitch, we just looked blunt. And we never looked like scoring or creating anything. He was the one creative spark we had last year, which I think goes to show. I don't care about stats. You can use stats to skew, if anything. But at the end of the day, he was also asked to do more defensive work last year, which I never really understood, because for me, the one player on the pitch who I not really bothered too much about doing defensive work is the number 10. I want my 9 and my wingers to press and my wingers to tuck in now and again and my midfielders to do this and that. Number 10, I'm kind of giving a bit more freedom in terms of defensive work. I just want him to kind of hold up space. That's just me. Yeah, I think Isaac Davis could surprise a few this year, because I know he's got a few doubters, but I think he'd do bits this year if he gets the chance. I really do. And there's a reason why, certain bigger clubs are interested in him, but you've got to give him a chance, as is with anyone. Guys, we're going to leave it there. Massively appreciate you all. A good 360 odd of you watching. So big love for that. Please go and subscribe to Cardiff City World. New shows, content out every week, videos, live shows, quizzes, whatever. It's all good. And then when the season starts, we'll have vlogs, previews, reviews. But this was the breakdown pod, normally on a Sunday, but it's Monday this week. We'll be back tomorrow night. Make sure you join us. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube, all that good stuff. You can follow me on Twitter, Si1927, Cardiff City World, CCFC World on Twitter, and obviously follow Ace Podcast Nation as well. Nice one. Appreciate you all. In a bit.